Imagine giving everything to the people who raised you, and discovering they were laughing at you behind your back. This is the story of Betrayal, $384,000, and the one line that changed everything. I still remember the warm sunlight filtering through our living room windows, casting golden streaks over the old carpet. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the perfect family. Mom humming in the kitchen, Dad reading the newspaper in his favorite armchair, and me, a kid blissfully unaware, thinking that family meant unconditional love. We celebrated birthdays with care, and holidays were magical, full of laughter and traditions. I trusted that love was forever. I trusted that family meant safety, respect, and honesty. Little did I know that the very foundation I was standing on had cracks so deep that I would later realize my whole world was built on an illusion. There were subtle signs, almost invisible at first. Dad's tight smile when he mentioned money. Mom's nervous laughter when discussing family expenses. I ignored them, brushing it off as adult quirks. I wanted to believe in the warmth of our home. I wanted to believe in them. And for years, I did. I remember one evening vividly. I had saved up for weeks to buy a small gift for my parents, a token of love and gratitude. Their smiles were bright, almost exaggerated, and I felt proud. But somewhere in the back of my mind, a faint whisper of doubt lingered. I didn't yet understand that the world of children's trust is fragile, and sometimes, the people we love most are capable of betraying it. By the time I reached adulthood, I had carried this illusion like a shield. I believed my parents' guidance, their advice, and their care were always genuine. I believed in the stories they told, the memories they cherished, and the way they insisted on keeping the family together. That belief became a lens through which I saw every decision, every sacrifice I made. Looking back now, I realize that innocence is a dangerous currency. I gave it freely, thinking that love was reciprocal. And in that quiet, golden-lit living room of my childhood, the seeds of my later heartbreak were quietly planted, disguised as smiles, laughter, and the comforting echo of a home that felt safe. Little did I know, the real test of love, loyalty, and courage was still decades away. Adulthood hit me like a wave I wasn't ready for. Suddenly, I was responsible, not just for myself, but for the people who had raised me. The very parents whose arms once comforted me now quietly shifted expectations onto my shoulders. "It's family support," they said, in gentle tones that felt more like obligations than requests. I wanted to help. I really did. At first, it was small, covering groceries, helping with bills, or pitching in for the occasional medical expense. I told myself it was normal. I told myself it was love. But slowly, the weight increased, like a storm cloud steadily darkening an otherwise sunny sky. Every request felt reasonable, until the total began to add up. What they didn't say, and what I didn't see, was the subtle undercurrent of control. Each favor, each contribution, became a thread tying me tighter to a web I didn't fully understand. Family duty, which should have been a mutual respect, was turning into a tool of manipulation. I began to notice the little things, passing comments that hinted I owed more, sighs of disappointment when I hesitated, eyes that lingered longer than comfort should allow. It's strange how easy it is to confuse duty with love. How easy it is to rationalize even the strangest demands when they come from people you've trusted your entire life. I remember nights lying awake, questioning myself, am I overreacting? Am I being selfish? The voice of doubt, cultivated by years of trust, whispered constantly. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I felt a tension I couldn't ignore. The support I offered was no longer about care, it had become an unspoken expectation. It was a transaction, disguised with smiles and gentle words. I was giving, and they were taking. And though I still loved them, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something was wrong. That what I had always considered family was quietly slipping into something I might not recognize until it was too late. This was the moment when duty became a trap, subtle yet suffocating. A trap wrapped in familiarity, disguised as tradition. And I, the dutiful child, was walking willingly into it, not knowing how tightly the strings were already wrapped around me. It started with small, almost imperceptible moments that didn't make sense at the time. A joke I didn't understand. A comment that lingered too long in the air. A laugh that seemed just a little too sharp. I dismissed them at first, blaming my own insecurities. But slowly, a pattern emerged, impossible to ignore. I remember the first time I realized something wasn't right. I had transferred a sum to help with a home repair, money I had worked for tirelessly, saved carefully, and intended purely as an act of love. Later that evening, I overheard a conversation between them, voices low but unmistakable. Laughter. Mocking tones. "Did you see the way they're falling for it again?" one said. My chest tightened, the gift in my hands suddenly feeling heavier than gold. It wasn't just that they were laughing, it was that they were laughing at me, behind my back, using my own trust as entertainment. A cold shock ran through me, an ache that cut deeper than any argument ever could. I felt betrayed, but more than that, I felt invisible. The version of me I thought they loved didn't exist in their eyes. That night, I replayed every memory. Every favor I had done. Every sacrifice I had made. Moments I had cherished suddenly felt tainted, as if my own love and loyalty had been currency for someone else's amusement. I began noticing the subtle manipulations in conversations, the careful ways they tested me, measured me, and expected compliance. The betrayal wasn't dramatic. There was no yelling, no confrontation. It was quieter, sharper, and far more painful because it was intimate. Family should protect you, nurture you, lift you up. But here, the same people who had once held me close were using that closeness to tighten their control. I spent nights thinking, is this real? Am I overreacting? Could love truly hide such cruelty? Every instinct told me something had changed irreversibly. And though I wanted to confront it, a part of me still hoped it was a misunderstanding, a fleeting lapse of character. But deep down, the first seed of mistrust had been planted. And once planted, no amount of smiles or gentle words could erase the sense of betrayal that was quietly reshaping my entire relationship with them. The moment I saw the number, my stomach dropped like a stone into icy water. $384,000. Written plainly on a letter that looked deceptively casual, signed with familiar handwriting I once trusted. I stared at it, thinking my eyes must be playing tricks. I reread it, each digit punching me harder than the last. This wasn't a loan. This wasn't a request for help. This was a demand. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought back to all the money I had given over the years, all the small sacrifices, the overtime hours, the skipped vacations. It had added up, yes, but never in my wildest nightmares did I imagine it would culminate in this kind of calculation, this grotesque tally of my love and loyalty. I felt anger rise like wildfire. And yet, beneath it, there was a deeper, sharper pain, the stinging betrayal of trust. How could the people who raised me, the ones who once hugged me when the world felt too big, now look at me as a walking ATM? How could they assign a number to my devotion, laugh at it behind my back, and then dare to demand more? I called my best friend that night, voice trembling. I had to hear someone else say it aloud, someone who could remind me that the number was outrageous, that it wasn't normal. And yes, hearing the words, "That's insane. They can't do this," helped, but only a little. Because the reality was still there, my parents, the people who were supposed to be my protectors, had weaponized their authority, their love, and my own sense of duty, against me. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I went through the years of my life, every birthday, every holiday, every gift I had given them. The price of love had been calculated, and it was far higher than I had ever imagined. I felt a storm of emotions, betrayal, disbelief, sorrow, and a simmering rage that whispered, "This is not how it ends." And as I stared at the letter, a single thought crystallized in my mind: I could pay it, and continue to be a puppet in their game. Or I could do something else, something that would make them realize, finally, that I was not just a source of money. I was a person. I had a voice. I had my dignity. Little did they know, the reply they would get would change everything. It was one of those moments that burned into memory forever. I had always trusted their words, their smiles, the way they spoke to me as if I were the center of their world. And yet, behind that carefully crafted facade, they were laughing, mocking me, ridiculing every ounce of effort I had ever put in. I remember the day I accidentally overheard them on a phone call. Their voices were low but carried that unmistakable edge of amusement. "Can you believe how much they've given us?" one said. The other chuckled, a sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard in my soul. My chest tightened, and a hollow ache spread through me. The warmth I associated with family was replaced with a cold, sharp betrayal. It wasn't just money. It was everything I had stood for, everything I had believed about love, loyalty, and family. Every sacrifice I had made now felt like a punchline. Every act of kindness, every selfless gesture, had been turned into fodder for their laughter. And they did it with ease, as if my devotion had always been theirs to mock. I walked away, pretending to be fine, but inside, the hurt festered. I replayed every interaction in my mind, trying to reconcile the parents I thought I knew with the people I had just seen. Could someone really hide such cruelty behind a smile? Could someone really make you question everything you had ever held sacred? The laughter lingered in my mind long after it stopped. It echoed through my memories, through family dinners, through birthdays, through quiet evenings I had once cherished. I realized that I had been living in a carefully constructed illusion, a world where trust had a price and love could be weaponized. And yet, somewhere beneath the pain, a spark ignited, a quiet determination that I would not allow this betrayal to define me. I refused to be reduced to a punchline. I refused to let the laughter be the last word. My response would be calculated, calm, and devastating in its simplicity. In that moment, I began to understand something important. The people who laugh behind your back often underestimate the power of a single, well-chosen line. And I was about to give them exactly that. After discovering the truth, I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. Every certainty I had about family, loyalty, and love seemed to crumble at once. Doubt crept in, gnawing at my mind like a relentless shadow. Was I imagining things? Had I misread them all these years? The questions haunted me day and night. Anger followed closely behind. It was a slow, simmering fire that pulsed with every memory of being used, every dollar I had handed over, every moment of trust they had shattered. I replayed their laughter in my head, over and over, each time sharper, crueler, impossible to ignore. The rage wasn't just at the money, it was at the realization that my devotion, my love, had been treated as a joke. Isolation became inevitable. I stopped sharing my life with them the way I once had. Conversations became guarded, polite, yet distant. I realized that intimacy, the kind I had taken for granted, was no longer safe. Each smile, each word, carried a hidden agenda. I could no longer relax, could no longer believe in the warmth of family. It wasn't just about feeling betrayed. It was about losing trust in the people who should have been my safe harbor. That loss reverberated through every part of my life, work, friendships, even my own self-confidence. I questioned my judgment, my instincts, my worth. How had I not seen it sooner? How had I been blind to the subtle manipulations, the mocking whispers behind closed doors? Yet, amid the anger and isolation, clarity began to form. The storm of emotions, though overwhelming, also revealed one undeniable truth: I had the power to respond. I could continue being the pawn in their game, or I could reclaim my dignity. I could let their laughter define me, or I could end the story on my own terms. This realization was quiet, almost imperceptible at first. But it grew stronger with every restless night, every reflection in the mirror. I was no longer just a child following orders or a dutiful adult handing over money. I was a person who deserved respect, whose love was not for sale, and whose voice could finally be heard. The question was no longer why did they do this? The question was, how will I respond? And deep down, I knew the answer would be simple, sharp, and unforgettable. In the days that followed, I retreated into silence. The noise of anger and betrayal had subsided just enough to allow space for careful thought. I wasn't impulsive. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation or a shouting match. What I wanted was justice on my own terms, quiet but undeniable. I began reflecting on every interaction, every conversation, every pattern of behavior. How had they treated me over the years? What were their weak points? What would catch them off guard, make them realize for the first time that their mockery had consequences? I wrote notes, made mental lists, replayed moments in my mind. Each laugh, each sly remark, each casual, family support request became a piece of a larger puzzle I was slowly assembling. It wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't want humiliation for the sake of humiliation. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted to reclaim my dignity and show them, subtly but firmly, that I was not someone to be taken for granted. The power of patience became clear to me. The quiet buildup, the slow burn, the anticipation, would be far more effective than immediate confrontation. I also sought advice, carefully, from friends and mentors I trusted. Not about money, not about punishment, but about strategy, about emotional intelligence, about ways to assert boundaries without losing myself in anger. Every discussion reinforced one truth: the simplest, clearest action often carries the heaviest weight. Night after night, I rehearsed my one line. I considered the timing, the tone, the exact words. It had to land with precision, cutting through years of lies and laughter without me ever raising my voice. I imagined their faces, the surprise, the realization dawning in their eyes. And the thought brought a strange calm, a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. This was the turning point. The moment when victimhood shifted into empowerment. The moment when I realized that true strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it waits quietly, builds itself in patience and clarity, and then strikes with a single, undeniable truth. I was ready. Not angry anymore. Not confused. But steady, focused, and determined. The next step, the one line, would speak louder than all the laughter and betrayal combined. The moment finally arrived. I could feel my heart pounding, but not with fear. This was calm, calculated resolve. I took a deep breath and typed the words that would end years of manipulation in one simple line. It wasn't angry. It wasn't long. It was precise, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. I hit send, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The line carried everything I had felt, the betrayal, the exhaustion, the quiet strength I had built over months of planning. It didn't scream. It didn't beg. It simply stated the truth. And the beauty of it was in its simplicity, the kind of clarity that leaves no room for denial. Almost immediately, I sensed the shift. Their usual confidence, their smugness, their laughter, they were gone. In their place was shock, confusion, a sudden awareness that the child they had once dismissed so easily had grown into someone they could no longer underestimate. One line had undone years of mockery, exposed the hypocrisy, and reclaimed my dignity in a way no shouting match ever could. I didn't wait for apologies. I didn't demand explanations. The power of the line was in its existence, in the undeniable truth it carried. And as I sat there, letting the moment sink in, I felt a liberation I hadn't experienced in decades. Years of tension, doubt, and invisible control lifted, replaced by a quiet but powerful sense of self-worth. The realization hit me fully: strength doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes, it's quiet, razor-sharp, and delivered exactly when it counts. And sometimes, a single line can speak louder than all the words, all the money, and all the laughter ever could. That night, I slept differently. Not bitter, not angry. Free. Finally, free from the invisible chains of manipulation, free from the weight of forced family duties, free from the illusion I had once believed in so blindly. And as the days passed, the echoes of that one line continued to resonate, not just in them, but in me. Proof that dignity, patience, and clarity can triumph over years of betrayal in a way nothing else can. The aftermath was almost surreal. The usual atmosphere of casual control and quiet mockery was gone, replaced by a tension so thick you could feel it in every room. Their laughter, once so effortless and sharp, was replaced by uneasy silences and hesitant glances. The line I had sent had landed with full force, and the shock was palpable. I watched them carefully, observing every reaction. There were moments of disbelief, faces frozen, eyes wide, mouths opening slightly, searching for words that wouldn't come. It was as if, for the first time, they were truly seeing me, not the obedient child, not the provider of family support, but the person I had always been beneath the layers of duty and expectation. Conversations that used to flow freely now stuttered. Requests for money slowed, polite questions masked uncertainty, and the subtle manipulations they once employed fell flat. Their confidence, once so steady, had crumbled under the weight of a single, unflinching truth. It was a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I felt relief, immense relief, but also a quiet sorrow for what had been lost. The relationship I had cherished, the innocence I had taken for granted, could never fully return. Trust, once broken, leaves invisible cracks, and while some walls could be rebuilt, the foundation had changed forever. Yet, in the midst of the shock, I realized something powerful. I had set a boundary, not with anger, but with clarity. I had reclaimed my dignity, and that reclamation rippled through every interaction. Their disbelief was a testament to the power of patience and quiet strategy, and it reminded me that strength doesn't always need to roar, it just needs to be unwavering. I also noticed subtle shifts in myself. I felt lighter, more centered, more capable of choosing what I would accept and what I would not. The fallout had not destroyed me, it had awakened a clarity and resilience I hadn't known I possessed. By the end of those weeks, it was clear, the family dynamic had shifted irreversibly. I was no longer a passive participant in their games. I had taken my place as an equal, a person whose worth could not be quantified, mocked, or diminished. And though the laughter of betrayal would always echo faintly, its power over me was gone. In the quiet that followed, I finally had space to breathe, to think about everything that had happened and what it had taught me. The anger, the betrayal, the weight of years spent giving without true reciprocity, it all lingered, but it no longer defined me. I began to see the story differently, not just as a tale of being used, but as a journey toward understanding my own worth. Healing wasn't instant. It came slowly, like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. I spent time reflecting on the lessons, how to recognize manipulation, how to protect my boundaries, and how to value myself above the expectations of others, even family. I realized that love is not duty, and respect cannot be demanded through fear or guilt. These were truths I would carry with me forever. I also forgave myself for being blind, for trusting too easily, for believing that loyalty alone could protect me. Those choices, once a source of shame, became a part of my strength. They taught me empathy, resilience, and the importance of listening to my own instincts before giving my energy away. The relationship with my parents would never be the same, and that was okay. I accepted the change, understanding that some connections cannot return to what they once were. But I also discovered a newfound freedom, the ability to choose how I interact with them, and with the world, without fear of being diminished. Most importantly, I learned that one line, delivered with clarity and calm, can be more powerful than years of anger or confrontation. It can restore dignity, assert boundaries, and shift a lifetime of imbalance with simplicity and courage. As I move forward, I carry a sense of peace. I am stronger, wiser, and more certain of my value. The laughter that once haunted me no longer has control. And though the memory of betrayal will always be part of my story, it is no longer the end, it is the beginning of a life where respect, love, and self-worth are truly my own. In the end, it wasn't the money that mattered, it was reclaiming my dignity. One quiet line changed the balance of a lifetime. Remember, love should never come at the cost of your self-respect. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below, and subscribe to hear more real stories of courage, family, and the unexpected strength we all carry.